Are people becoming more narcissistic?
Yes.
They are?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what impact is that having?
I don't even know where to start. Like, so I think it's affecting our relationships. It's affecting our happiness. It's affecting our professional ability.
I was thinking, is social media making us more narcissistic?
Absolutely.
And is that then driving us to be more lonely? And if so, how do we first define the word narcissism in this context?
Yeah, so I'm going to lean into kind of a more yogic definition. So we have this word in Sanskrit called ahamkara. And ahamkara means ego. So ahamkara is your sense of self. I am ... Okay? So I am tall, I am short, I am doctor, I am father, I am winner, I am loser. The first thing to understand about ego is that it is not a real thing. It is an abstraction. So if you were to look at me and you say, if I say I am a doctor, I know this sounds kind of a weird question, but is that true? Like, what makes me a doctor? I can't biopsy myself and find doctor. You can't find doctor anywhere within me. Doctor is I have a piece of paper on a wall. That's what makes me a doctor. I have a license to practice medicine. That's what makes me a doctor. It's an abstraction. So it's not like a truth. It's like a societal shared delusion that we all agree that I'm a doctor. That's why I'm a doctor. Okay? And does that make sense?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So this is the ego. Now, what we also know is that from studies on narcissism, that narcissism has its roots in insecurity. So if you think about someone who's like egotistical and confident, like Stephen, I'm sure you know both, what's the difference between the two?
Confidence feels more secure and egotisticalness feels more insecure.
Absolutely. Where does a confident person's esteem come from?
Inside.
Where does a egotistical's esteem come from?
Outside.
Beautiful. So this is what social media is doing. Social media and technology is externalizing our perception. So if I think about it, think about a couple thousand years ago, what was my mind focused on? So I would go out to hunt. I'm looking for an animal. I shoot a deer. And then I walk 3 hours back. So for some amount of time, my mind is paying attention to the external environment. Maybe I'm talking with the people that I'm hunting with. But what is there to say? Like, I can't talk to them for 10 hours a day. There's no substance. There's no news, right? We're like this tribal community. So if you really look at the history of humanity, our perception has been internally focused at least 50% of the time. Literally what we are paying attention to is our own thoughts, our own feelings, the voices, the desires, the drives that come within us. What technology has done is whole-scale externalize our perception. And this is even where, like, you know, I used to be like an efficiency junkie. And so when I was in med school, I was gonna be like you, Stephen, and I was gonna be super efficient. I was gonna be super successful. So I was like listening to a podcast in the morning about self-help. I was gonna listen to lectures on my way to the subway. I was gonna read on the way on the subway. I was gonna listen to a lecture on my way to the classroom, pay attention in the classroom, then do some questions, like some test questions, whatever. So my mind was constantly outside of me. Social media makes this even worse because now we're doom scrolling, we're looking at what other people are doing. So we are starting to exist outside of ourselves. Once we exist outside of ourselves, all of our esteem comes from the outside world because that's where we're spending our time. So what's happening is as we become more externalized, we're becoming insecure because where does confidence really come from? It doesn't come from inside. This is a big mistake a lot of people don't realize, which is if you do really well and you don't believe in yourself, you don't become secure. A lot of people think that becoming secure is about being successful. That's not the case. If you're really successful, you don't end up with security. You end up with imposter syndrome. So I went to Tufts for medical school and I did my residency training at Harvard. And what I saw is that the more successful you become, that increases the rate of imposter syndrome. There's way more imposter syndrome at Harvard than there is at the University of Texas. There's way more imposter syndrome at a place like Goldman Sachs than there is at Bank of America. So lots of success actually creates this idea that I don't really know if I can do this. Oh, everyone else is so much better than me. So we see actually lots of success leads to imposter syndrome. Confidence doesn't come from success, it comes from surviving failure. It's also far more internal. So it's not something that anyone else gives you. It's like when you believe in yourself, then you're confident. And then the beautiful thing is that once you believe in yourself, then other people can think whatever they want to about you. The way that you receive criticism, if you criticize an egotistical person, they will argue with you and convince you that you're wrong and call you stupid. Whereas if you're confident, someone says, hey, you're an idiot, I can say, okay, help me understand why. Like, I could be an idiot. Help me understand. Right? So this is where what social media is doing is externalizing our perceptions, building our ego. We're so focused on the judgment of other people. I see the amount of body, like subtle, low-level body dysmorphia that I see in young women is skyrocketing. And I have a buddy who's a plastic surgeon at Yale, and he's just stunned by, you have now young women in their 25, 26, 27 who are getting plastic surgery like on a yearly basis, like small amounts of Botox injections or lip fillers or like whatever.
Men too.
Men too. So that's also the other great equality thing we're seeing is body dysmorphia has a meteoric rise within men. This is another situation where it used to be primarily a female diagnosis that's evening out real quick. So social media is making us focused on our external appearance. We lose our connection to ourselves. And then once we lose our connection to ourselves, we lose the capacity to gain confidence.